Hey there, hey, it's your girl Deja and the host of Black and Wild, the podcast. This podcast, this show, is about highlighting those lesser known or underrepresented stories in conservation and outdoor spaces on public lands, those stories and those voices that are little known or little heard of. I want to uplift those in this show. On today's episode, I am speaking with a dear friend of mine, someone who is a friend of a friend that now I have been lucky enough to call them my friend too, and that is my friend Khang, who some people might know him as Carl. And King has a very, I would say unique story because he has a disability that is called osteogenesis imperfecta, also known as the brittle bone disease. Brittle bone disease is so rare that there are only about 20,000 cases diagnosed every year. This is something that you are born with, and that does have to be diagnosed by a medical practitioner. He's lived with this disease his whole life and experiencing extreme fragility. And it's was such a good conversation with him on getting to know how did he become the person that I know today, who to me appears to be so fearless, but yet it's not as easy for him to be able to explore and maneuver the world that we live in. But that doesn't mean that him or anyone else who has a disability or any other, what appears to be limitations on being able to experience the outdoors doesn't mean that they don't want to or don't enjoy it, right? They may have to just take some extra planning to be able to do the same things that someone else who is able bodied or has accessibility is able to experience these places. So, without further ado, let's jump into that episode. I do also want to highlight that King also is a Vietnamese immigrant. And so we're going to hear a little bit more too about what his experience was like growing up in Vietnam and that transition into the United States and the community that he has found overall in his lifetime that has really helped guide, support, and shape the person that we know today, who identifies as Carl in most settings. I do want to note that the opinions and ideas reflected in this show on this episode are not representative of any particular organization or agency. They are solely based off of the ideas and conversations between myself and Kate. I hope you enjoy this episode. Let's get into it. Well, hello, King. How
Hi,
are
Lisa.
you? Thank you so much for joining me on the episode today. I really cannot wait to hear about just your experience in the outdoors and your perspective on, how we can make the outdoor experience more inclusive and accessible for everybody because they call it public lands for a reason. It's because these spaces are for everyone to enjoy. But before I get too far, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and share whatever you would like to share about yourself for the audience.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for including me. I feel super humble that you want me on here to share my stories and experience. I love the outdoor, and you guys are doing great. And um, quick intro: I know you because I know your partner. I know your fiance um, from high school, so we went way back. I'm actually organizing our 20-year reunion right now. So
You're aging
I'm
it
really
now.
excited,
You're aging
huh?
it now.
I just did. It's fine. I've lived. I've seen some things. But yeah, so I'm so glad that you asked me to be on here. I love telling stories. I love sharing experiences with people. My daytime job is a teacher. I teach English in a high school, so I teach students to tell the story, to write the story, to record their story all the time. I think it's the most powerful way of sharing and connecting with each other. So I think what you're doing, this podcast that you're doing, is incredible. And yeah, I'm so excited to be here and to talk with you.
Thanks. Oh, I appreciate that, and thanks for sharing of how we know each other. And I'm so thankful to have found a friend in you as well, and the connection that we've made through our connections to Joe. So this has been really special to have developed our own bond. And I did ask his permission if I could have you, but he said,
I think I talk to you more than I talk to Joe. Like we like interact with each other on social media and text way more than I do with Joe. So
It's kind of started to become a thing even with his family, but that's okay. If
he's
anyone wants to know how we're doing, they usually will go through me and then they can know.
I think there you go. Perfect.
But that's all good. Well, King, I wanted to just check in and you mentioned that you love the outdoors, and I was wondering if you wouldn't mind elaborating on, well, what has your experience been like in outdoor spaces and public lands?
I think just just a background story. My name it's Khang. Right? I didn't introduce my name. You know me as Khang, but then since as since I became an adult, I introduced myself as Carl. I started using an English name, and people who know me as Kang, they know me as somebody who's very um, how do I say introverted, very indoorsy. I don't really get out much. Very timid. So I didn't get to go out a lot, and Joe would attest to this. Going out is very difficult. Just to get transportation, just to find accessibility. There's so many challenges just to leave the comfort of my home. So as an adult, like when I transform, right, when I evolve, I think that's what we were saying earlier. Is like once I evolve into this person that is Carl, um, I had more independence. People who know me and this other pseudo, it's like they see me as somebody who's independent, who goes out a lot, who willing to explore and take risk and um, doing things that many people think that may not be physically possible for me to do. I think the outdoor provide me with that challenge. Um, I mean, the city itself is very can be very inaccessible in itself. But I think in the city you can accommodate for that, where you can fix certain things, you can improve certain things, and you can um, make sure things can be accessible or approachable. But in the outdoor, whatever goes. And I think being able to overcome that challenge, it's one of the biggest um, one of the biggest accomplishments for me to achieve because yeah, once I can do that, I can really say that I've done it. And I think just to yeah, and outside of that, I just like to be peaceful. I think in some, like my personality, like has always been quiet and peace and calm, and I want to get away from the noises a lot of the time. So I think being with nature, being connected to the earth, being connected to our environment is so important because sometimes we just forget about it.
Right,
Right? Forget that the world is so beautiful, just naturally without us needing to do anything.
right. Yeah. No, that's so true. And especially, having spent so much originally from LA. And yeah, I just remember, the most outdoorsy thing we would do is go to the beach. But other than that, there wasn't much emphasis placed on even our green spaces in the city. It was not an idea to go there to actually relax and enjoy that space, right? And enjoy the little parts of the space, right? Or seeing the wind blow through the trees, or seeing squirrels running around on the ground, probably eating litter, but still, you're not focusing on these the little beauties in the world. It's just, oh, okay, we're outside.
Mm,
But it was usually like, okay, we're outside because we're going somewhere. And I think there's so much distractions, especially in urban spaces. There's a lot of sounds. There's a lot of things that you're seeing. Everything's moving very quickly. It's almost overwhelming, and that's something I have found too. When do, I'm more intentional about going outside to find that peace. I really seek somewhere where I can spend time alone in a space and really be able to just connect and be present. Um, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind, you mentioned that you used to have a harder time being able to access the outdoors and travel and experience more. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that? What has limited you on
mm.
to experience more?
Great question. Yeah, I should get into that because I have a disability. In case the video is not shown, I have a disability. It's called osteogenesis imperfecta. It's a brittle bone disease. I think 1 out of 50,000 people has it. So it's fairly rare. It's considered a rare condition. So I'm very fragile. So if you ever seen the movie Unbreakable, I'm like Mr. Glass, basically. So doing physical activity can be a bit of a challenge. But over time, I have found that my body is getting stronger. Although my doctor has said that I will need supplements when after I turn 40s. So not looking forward to that, but I did age myself earlier, and I'm getting really close to that age. So I'm trying to do as many things that I can now as possible because yeah, I don't want to wait until I can't do it anymore. So yeah, going out is a challenge because I have a big wheelchair, and using a smaller wheelchair is harder because then I have to use my body to maneuvers and move it around. But if I use the power chair, it's so heavy, and you can't get into it. You can't really navigate a lot of spaces with that. So either in the city or in the outdoors, it's a challenge either way. Um, hmm, Joe can tell you, speaking of beaches, like Joe can tell you, in high school, we would use my manual chair and we would go to the beach. And even with a manual chair that weighed maybe 30, 40 pounds, it's not heavy. But pulling that chair on the sand is not easy. Like, try to do that with somebody, but it's not ideal. Um, and so, yeah, and Joe has all the experience with that, just pulling me on the sand. And sometimes because I'm so small, it's easier to just carry me and then carry the chair. So like just carry both instead of trying to wheel somebody to the sand. So I always tell people I'm a mountain person and not a beach person, just because the sand is just way too difficult to navigate. A mountain range, I can use my power chairs and I can just plow through mostly everything. So it's a lot easier, although sometimes I do feel bad at like bringing a piece of technology into natures and feeling a little intrusive. But it's the only way I can experience it, uh, and like you said, you go to this outdoor away from the city, and you actually learn about these things. Where I'm like, leave things the way that you found them. Like, don't leave trash, don't litter. Be slow and appreciate nature. Listening to the birds, listening to the wind.
Mhm,
Like nature has so many stories to tell you. So uh, I'm learning to just be with nature, even bringing in technology that help me to appreciate it. Because they do build a lot of adaptive equipment now that let people
mhm,
really explore the world.
yeah,
So there are chairs that will get on the beach, and there are chairs that will go on really steep inclines, and I can find those things. I can't say that I can afford them, but the possibilities are endless. Um, so yeah, with it's that's why as a young person, it was harder for me to get out and about. But as an adult, I'm still exploring my independence, and um, it's slowly getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so funny when you talk about, your friends carrying you in high school because whenever Joe talks about his high school memories, it's about your friend group and just going out, you know, um, and just hanging out together. But he would always, and it wasn't ever, it was like a part of the story. It was like, oh yeah, we'd go pick up Kang, we'd carry him wherever, and then like make sure to carry his chair with us. But he always talks about those memories fondly and just how you guys would go out and like causing trouble, being teenage boys together. But I appreciate that. And I remember when I first met you, Joe never told me anything because that doesn't define you. Whatever our physical appearance is not all of who we are. And there's so
Yeah.
much more to you. And so when he would tell me these stories, he never shared that part about carrying you. That was until after I met you. And I remember when you were first coming towards us, and I thought, I love that Joe didn't say anything. And that gave me a whole different perspective of him as a person and his just humanity, because it sounded like from what he would tell me from your memories in high school and the time you spent together, that friend group never looked at you as less than them
Mm.
or that you were a burden on them or anything. It was like, what can we do? Because Kane's coming with us, right? And we want you to be a part of this. So I'm really thankful that that you're his friend, and I can only imagine just having had that relationship with you, how much that shaped him and the way that he interacts with people in the world. But I know that he's just so thankful to have that friendship, and so thank you for being a friend to him.
Yeah, me too. I think about that a lot. Like just having your community, and even like this, like you have your outdoor community, you have your underrepresented underrepresented groups of people who are not usually seen outdoor.
Hmm.
That's in itself is a community, and I,
Hmm.
I'm glad I had that community in high school, and I'm glad I have community now that I can rely on in different part of my life, right? Like, I have my community who travel, I have my community who are outdoorsy people that I go camping with. I have my community that hosts events for disabled people. Like the we have so many intersectionalities that we need to learn to acknowledge so that we can tap into these identity. And
Hmm.
honestly, like I didn't realize that until becoming an adult and experience these things for myself. Because as a as a child, as a young adult, I always feel like I was a burden to my friends. I know I'm glad that you said that, I like the way that you see Joe and you hear what he said that, he never felt like a bird, like I was a burden. But I always felt that way, even up until like college year, even as like becoming an adult, I still felt that I would be a burden if I were to do something. Um, so just to relate that to outdoor, what you like if I went camping by myself and something happened, then immediately I would become a burden. And then when people take care of me, then I feel like they make me feel so guilty. And I've gotten into accident, I've gotten stuck, and then I've gotten out of very scruffy situation, and I always feel very guilty about that. And I think a lot of the time we let that stop us from going out and experience things. Because sometimes I feel like, what if I get stuck on a hill? What if my chair runs out of power when I'm in the middle of the woods? Because I like going on hikes, and I go on hikes and I'm in the middle of nowhere and no cell phone signal, and nothing, and if my chair malfunctions, what am I gonna do? So it's a lot to consider, but you either let that stop you or you just deal with it as it comes. Just take the
Exactly.
risk and experience it.
Exactly. Yes. So many things come to mind from what you shared, and uh, thank you for being so transparent and sharing your feelings about, spending time outside with your friends and your community. And community is so important. I always think of my community as my chosen family. And, I it's frustrating that you feel guilty because I can't help but have from what I can understand, the way Joe's described his time with you and your friendship is that they couldn't imagine not spending time with you. Like you were an important part of those memories. And so I hope that you realize that, and it's always a pleasure to spend time with you, even if there are certain accommodations we have to make. It's really because we want you to be a part of these memories with us. And that was even something we thought about when we were choosing our location for the wedding was, okay, but we really want King to be there. And so not saying it was, something that was the one, deal breaker, but it was definitely something that crossed our minds when we were thinking of locations. And I'm glad to say that it will be accessible for everyone. But yeah, it's not going to be the same if you're not there. And I hope we can continue to share more memories together. I did also want to add that as you're describing, what it takes for you to spend time outdoors, you know, I always hear there's a saying that goes around in the hiking outdoor community, and it's hike your own hike. And that's for everyone, no matter your background, your shape, your size, your experience, is that we all deserve to experience these spaces, no matter what that looks like. And I know that's been a big discussion in national parks or just in public lands in general is, you know, how do we go about making these spaces accessible for everyone, no matter what, if you have a disability or your lack of knowledge or experience, what lengths are we willing to go to really make sure these spaces feel inclusive and that they are truly public lands for everyone. There's actually in Grand Teton at the Lawrence Rockefeller Preserve, I believe there was a family member of the Rockefellers that actually was wheelchair bound, and they created a path and a water to get to a waterfall so that person could experience it.
Mm,
So if you do ever get to go to the Tetons, there are some areas that they have purposely made it accessible with someone who's wheelchair bound in mind. But I was wondering if we could go back just a little, and if you wouldn't mind sharing, what was it like as you were growing up? Like, were there these ideas placed on you, these feelings by your community as you were growing up that you were a burden or that you couldn't do everything everyone could do? Or was it the opposite? Like as you were a child and first like navigating the world and
I think it's a little bit of both. I think internally we all want to explore, right? I think we have that internal adventure, Indiana Jones inside of us, right? Like, want to go explore and discover things. So I always have that. I think especially with a disability, I want to go out even more because I had less opportunity to do it. So I think as a child, I really want to just do everything. I just want to go out to do all the things.
yeah.
And I grew up in Vietnam, so I was like, my childhood is like I'm crawling on the ground. I'm like in the dirt. I'm playing like until my body is like unrecognizable. Like every time I come back home for a shower, it's just like dirt's everywhere. So I'm always maybe I don't really think about this that much, but I think that's always been a part of me just to like get my hand dirty, like get into the rough part of it, right? And I always enjoy. I grew up in the city, but I have family like out in like the farmland in Vietnam. So every once in a while, my mom would just leave me with them, and I'm just like, as a child, you're like, why the heck did you leave me, right? But then once you figure out, like, oh, I'm just hanging out with my relatives, and they know how to take care of me, and you stay there for a week, and it's just different. You wake up to the rooster, you hear the birds, and
Yeah.
there's no cars, there's no motorcycle, there's just bicycling, and like the roads are just dirt roads, and the houses are made of clay, and the roof are just leaves, and I still remember all that those experiences, and I think I always prefer the simpler times, and I think being in nature allow me to do that, and it's just like just get away from everything, and you know get rid of my technology, except for the one piece that I need is my wheelchair. But even my chairs, I make sure that it has the least amount of moving part that's possible. Like I don't want any fancy Bluetooth things. I just need the chair to like go forward and go backward, basically. I just need a motor that moves me, right? So I'm always like I'm always the type of the type to just keep everything very minimalist. Uh,
Mhm.
and so I think I connect to nature a lot easier that way because I hate when I go camping with friends who just like super glamper and they'll pack literally everything. Like, why
Yeah.
do you pack your house with your
Exactly.
fun? Why don't you, why don't we just stay home and have a party, right? I don't understand all these tents and covers and
Yeah.
stove top and what if you build a fire, right? What if you can't and you don't have these things? Like how can you build a fire, right? And I think those skills are so necessary. You never know. I always tell people, and whenever we lose power or whenever we have some natural situation emergency, I always tell I'm a camper. I can survive this for like 2 weeks, no problem, right? Um, so it's good to also have that experience to be able to like take care of yourself and be able to deal with nature, that what nature throw at you, because like
Mhm.
you never know. Mother Nature is it's a tough cookie.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's so true.
yeah, and California is good in a way where it's like the weather is pretty predictable. You don't get anything out of the ordinary a lot of the time, except for the wildfires, um, and unexpected earthquakes. But otherwise, you don't get anything, any wild situation. But when I lived in Baltimore, also I lived in Baltimore. I lived on the East Coast for a minute. That's where I learned to camp a lot. There's a lot of nature out there. And it's a lot easier to get to because everything's closer to each other. So I can travel to different states and camp in different places, and not have to drive like 8 hours like I do here in California. Anyway, you live over there, and it's like the hurricane, the snowstorm, the blizzards, and there's all these things, and then you kind of feel, okay, well, you're in the city, but still, what if these things happen?
Yeah.
What would you do, right? Like, do you have flashlight? Do you have tent? Do you have warm clothes? Do you have
Yeah.
sleeping bag? These things that can really help you survive
Right.
in a situations, and I think building up that kind of a tough skin and experience to like survival skill is so important.
Yeah.
Um, so that's also a part of the drive for me to be outdoors. Okay, I'm not going to learn it until I get into it. Right? I won't be
Yeah.
able to learn these things. Um, and like you said, the we have come a long way in terms of accessibility, right? Back in the days, like people like me, you would assume we just stay at home, watch TV, and see the world through a window, basically. Um, but now there are definitely more awareness, and I think a podcast like this is so important to get our voices out there, right? Different voices. Uh, I mean, I am Asian and I am a minority, but there's also like that other intersectionality of me of that being a disabled person that people see first. And
Yeah.
seeing a disabled person out and about and how challenging things can be will hopefully drive people to create that change.
Right.
Um, and I think a good example of that was Hawaii. When I went to Hawaii, there's a lot of trail, there's a lot of places, parts of dime a dozen. It's everywhere, but not all of them are accessible. So I always have to like, okay, which one is it that I can go to? Which mountain can I actually hike? Like
Mhm.
uh, which hills can I go on to? Which waterfall can I actually go get close to and see?
Yeah.
So that's always on my list of concerns when I go anywhere. It's like, okay, how will I navigate this? Especially when I'm traveling by myself and then camping by myself. Doing solo trips is uh, I can be spontaneous, but there's also a little bit of planning to make sure that okay, I got to make sure that this works.
Mhm. Exactly. No, that's so true, and I mean, that's really the case for anyone. You have to plan ahead, but I can imagine that you do have to make sure you're taking those additional precautions. You can't be as spontaneous because you need to make sure, for one, your wheelchair has enough charge, right? And that's something that you can't just decide on a whim. You have to make sure that you're thinking ahead, regardless of what your plans are. So I can only imagine of just the additional planning that goes into you being able to be prepared for really any adventures. Um, I was wondering if you could share, as you were younger and growing up, um, do you feel like Vietnam was a little bit more accessible? Because it was amazing to hear about you just being dropped off in the country with your family, and I thought, oh my gosh, your mom clearly didn't overthink, any part of your physical limitations. She just took you out to your family and wasn't coddling you. I think that's amazing, and I wonder if a part of that is why you also have that idea that you can also go anywhere and almost do anything because she was just putting you in situations and letting you go. But yeah, what was that compared to like Vietnam and the US? Because you came at what age?
13.
13. So yeah,
Yeah,
you spent a
yeah,
decent time then in
yeah.
Vietnam. What was
Yeah.
that been like?
Honestly, I didn't really think about it until now. You asking me this question. And maybe it's probably did play a big role into it. Like I remember I hated it. Like I did not like I'm screaming and yelling like, why, being away from my mother was naturally I think any child would freak out about it. And um but once the dust settle, basically what they say, I was fine. I don't think I ever had a challenge because I was left with my family, so and they know how to take care of me. And I think the culture is different because, like I say, I would play around the neighborhood. I would play in the dirt. I would like go around the neighborhood, and everybody in if I think I remember this correctly, but everybody in my neighborhood knew me, knew my family. We know each other, so we trust each other. There wasn't like that, like you say, coddling culture where like my family had to keep an eye on me all the time. Or like my sister or my brother, right, or my cousin. We were free to roam until 6 p.m. You come home, take a shower, and you eat. Right? Like they don't need to follow us like hawk like family do here.
Mhm.
Especially now with technology, because you can track all your family on the phone, which is like, why do you need to know where I'm at all the time? Like
Yeah.
um and I think if I'm hoping that if I ever have kids, I would like be hands off with them and let them be able to explore and get their hands dirty and just
Yeah.
learn the nature, for themselves. Instead of and yeah, I think you have a good point. Maybe that play a big role in how I became how I grow, and I always have that sense of like I just want to get away. I just want to go away for a minute.
Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. Um, So, what happened that shift? Because you mentioned there's Kang, who is a little bit more introverted and not more of a homebody, but then now there's Carl, who has evolved into this world traveler and adventure thrill seeker. What made that shift happen? Do you remember? Like what triggered that?
I think it's community mostly, like being an adult and finding people who are into different things. I have a group of friends who want to go to the bar and hang out all the time, but then I have a group of friends who like to be in nature and go on hikes. So it starts slow. You go on a couple hikes, you go on to the beach, and you find that, oh, this is accessible. Yeah, maybe there's more of it. Um, it, it didn't just happen right away, I think, right? Um, and even in the city, even in nature, I had to learn to navigate through like the snow, right? You guys know all about snows, how will I navigate the snow? What happen if there's a blizzard coming through? Um, so you kind of just, I think I just learned it slowly based on like with the people that I'm surrounding myself with.
Mm.
So I used to go to the beach every summer with this group of friends, and I used to go floating out the river with another group of friends. Um, and you find things that you are able to do, and you find things that you probably don't want to do again, right? and um, but then you kind of figure out, okay, this is what I like, and this is what I don't like. So you spend more time with those people. So like I said, this community is so important to figure out who you are,
Right.
because the community teach you like to find that part of yourself.
Right.
Um, yeah, like yes, since I mentioned River Tubin, I mean like one time we were in Philadelphia, we're in the middle of nowhere, and nobody has cell phone signal. We were with like a group of like 10 people. And you float down the river and then you have to hike back like 2 miles hike. And the hike is like you have to climb up this cliff. And then so people would transfer me, like lifted me and then transfer me like an assembly line, basically, like, and then they were pushing the chair. Like it felt like I was back in high school where somebody's pushing the chair and then somebody's carrying me because the trail was really narrow. There was a trail, but it's very narrow, just enough for my chair. And there's roots and there's leaves and there's dirt. So um, pushing the chair by itself is easier than me in it and risking that me falling over because my friend did trip and like fall over into the water. Um, and this is like I said, it's like risk you have to take to learn your limit, basically. And I learned my limit that trip because we floated down these water. They're not big waterfall, maybe like 3, 4 feet. So they're small waterfall, but the current was pretty rough. So I'm like tandem with my wheelchairs. I'm in a float, and my wheelchair's in another float, and then I'm tandem with another friend. And for some miracle, I never fell over. Like we still don't understand how that happened. I'm like flying down these waterfalls and like fall over. And one of our friends actually fell over, hit her head, and then she actually had a concussion. And we couldn't call anybody. Like, she had to walk back to the car, drive herself to the emergency room. This is like a 2 mile hike back, right? So it wasn't an easy hike. We didn't know. So looking back at it, we were terrible friends. But also like for some miracle, I'm the one who was most prone to get hurt, and I did not get hurt. But I think that's a river that we're not gonna do when I'm around. And I think, to your point, it's like these people that I was hanging out with, this community, these group of friends, they they didn't mind that I was there. We were finding a way for me to participate. And I think there's something to be said about that. I think having people in places like that, having people who are willing to explore with you and open the world up to you. Like you can't open the world by yourself, right? It's a heavy door. You need 2, 3 people to open this door. Basically, it's not an automatic door.
Right.
So I think, yeah, from that, I mean, there were there were friends who really tried to stop me from going, right? And they like, Carl, this is not a place, right? But this is Carl here. This is like Carl exploring the outdoor of the world, right? And a lot of them like, look, the waterfall, the water is really strong. It's in the middle of nowhere. I don't think you should go. And I'm over here. The more you tell me not to do it,
Oh,
it's like you have the devil and the angels on your shoulder. And there are friends who telling me not to do it, and then other friends who are encouraging me to do it. So then I went with the friend who said, "This is totally fine. You can do it, right?" And you need both. You need both of those friends who understand your limit, and
yeah.
then you need friends who will push the limit with you. I'm glad I pushed my limit, but I will not do it again.
Like you said, there's some things you need to try, so you wanna try that some more, and
Mhm.
other things that
Yeah,
you
and I think, like, and once I experience that, I know, okay, now that I look at a river and there are lots of waterfall, and maybe I should avoid it. That's not an experience that I need to have
right.
unless it's completely safe, right? Like if I'm on something that's not able to tip over, like a dinghy, you're on a boat and that boat is not going to be able to tip over no matter how strong the wave is, then yeah, I'll go on it, like no problem. Especially if there are people around who can jump in and save me. But um, looking back on that situation, it was dangerous for me to be there. Yeah. But I'm glad I did it. I think
Yeah.
it's all based on community because there are times when I go to places by myself and I wish there were people there. Like even just a simple hike up in the woods and going up very steep hill. I can do it, but going down is harder, and I wish there was another person just in case. Um,
Yeah.
so there are things like that, and like, oh, I've already hiked for 4 or 5 miles. I should turn around because I don't know how long my chair can last. Um, I can push myself up this hill, but going down, what if my chair slipped? So maybe I shouldn't go all the way up on top of the hill.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so there are times like I do wish I had that group of people around, right? So um, it's fun to explore things um, on your own. Like I love doing that,
Yeah.
but um, I think having people around really made a big impact. Yeah.
I love that. And it's I will say the things that you get into, I'm always so inspired and amazed because you're so bold. And it's funny that you're describing King versus Carl because although I met you, or at least I was introduced to you as King, I think I really met Carl. That's all I've known is somebody who's extroverted, the life of the party, the first one on the dance floor, says yes to almost everything pretty much. And, I think there's a beauty in that because if you focus on all the reasons why you shouldn't do something or all the things that could go wrong, then you're never going to try anything, right? You're never going to experience anything new, but you're also never going to learn how far you can challenge yourself and what you really can achieve. And I will say the outdoors has taught me so much in regards to what I think are my limitations. And when I'm pushed to that, what I think is a boundary, and I go beyond that, it's always amazing that self-confidence that I've developed by having those opportunities. And it sounds like you've gained that while also gaining some knowledge of, okay, maybe I don't need to take this unnecessary risk, but I'm glad that you've had those moments.
And I really want to like point out the fact that having people like yourself working in these spaces, in these environment, and paying attention to those people who want to put themselves in that environment and recognize them and understand who they are and what you can do to help them. It to be a part of that is like so important, right? Like I said, like having somebody there who understand and able to help me or people like myself, like even able-bodied people can be afraid of these things, right? Like I don't know how to explore the world. This is a brand new space for me, and having you there guiding them is like just the thing some of us need is just like that one voice that said, "You can do this." Just like, just do it. I participated in this. It's like this is perfect timing because on Saturday I went to this event. It's called Day on the Beach. So this organization, Share Ventures, they hosted this event every year. They build platforms on the beach, and they have music playing. They have food. They have different water activity for people with of any abilities to participate in. So you can kayak, you can scuba dive, you can go
Gosh,
on the outrigger. So I went on this outrigger. You know what an outrigger is? It's like
no.
a kayak with like a float on the side. So you
Okay.
see that a lot in Hawaii.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's a big kayak basically.
Right.
So I went on this um outrigger, and everybody who was on that team, who was on that kayak, they were trained to help people like me or people who have different shapes and size and needs. Um, there was a lady with me on the outrigger. She's a lot, you know, heavier than me. She's has a lot more. Her condition is more limited than me, so it was easy for me to like they can pick me up, put me on somebody's lap, and I'll sit in the kayak, no problem. But for her, they require a very specific way to lift her. And they require a specific way to sit her onto the kayak, and like having somebody else with it. Like, but these people were trained to do that, and they were so willing to do that. They did that all day from 10 to like 6 p.m. Right? The people rotating, continuing doing this all day to get these people out into the water no matter what. It's like we are here to make sure that this happens. We are here to make sure that you get on the water. So we will figure out what needs to be done, because you need to be out on the water and explore this, right? So it was easy for me, but for other, it may be more challenging. But having that team there, having that group there, having those people who are unafraid and they are willing to push the limit, they were willing to ask questions and like, how can I help you? And willing to help, it's that's what makes the difference.
Mm,
Because you the easiest thing to do is just turn people like me away, right? And think I get that a lot. Anywhere I go, even in the city or when I arrive as a campground or go into a hike somewhere, people will see me. I get that. I get that feeling that, oh, he shouldn't be here. Like this is not a proper space.
mm,
Um,
mm.
and I think a lot of the times we don't give people enough chance to um, to just learn and figure out their limit, right? Like my friend who tell me not to do it, and we're so quick. Like so, the easiest thing for anybody to do is just like, look, this is hard, right? It's gonna take us like 40 minutes to get you into this kayak. This is too challenging. Um, maybe you save it for next time. Maybe we'll wait until we'll come up with something more adaptable. Whereas if you have the will to help somebody to be here in this space, in this environment that is nature, that is beautiful, that is unexpected, like and unpredictable, but if you're just willing to put the time and the patience and effort into it, I mean, it
Yeah.
can be life changing for somebody.
No,
Yeah.
definitely. That's so true. It's almost sounds like folks are gatekeeping, and that's the frustrating thing that I mentioned earlier is that these spaces are called public lands and they always say outdoors for everyone. But yeah, it really makes a difference when people are willing to go that extra mile to really make sure these spaces are inclusive and accessible for everybody, whether that's, and there's inaccessibilities due to finances or physical limitations, whatever that is. It really just it's just starting with that will and that need and that want to try, right? And I appreciate that you've had people in your community that you've come across that are willing to think outside the box and not just say, "Oh, this seems too hard," and not
Mm.
try, because that really does go a long way. And thank you for touching on that, because that's something, the more that I'm involved in public lands, the more I can't help but think about, well, who's missing here? Whose voices are missing, who is not being able to have this experience, because we all deserve to be here. And I have found the benefits from being able to spend time outside. It sounds like you have had that from a very young age, even before you could realize exactly what was happening to you and how that was having a profound effect on you. I was wondering, have you, come across other people other than this weekend that you were a part of? Are there other folks who are actually speaking to accessibility, in regards to making these spaces feel more inclusive for folks or be more welcoming? I know you've traveled, but are you actually hearing people advocate for these rights?
I think very rarely,
Mm,
very rarely. I think more so in the urban area, like in cities, we always advocate for things to be more accessible because it's easier. Um, and for me, in a way, making public land more accessible, going back to the idea that I had about in being intrusive to nature. I hate that, right? And so, like, for me, I feel guilty if I ask for that.
yeah.
And I think instead of making the public land, um, instead of altering the public land, um, I'm
Mm,
always thinking about, like, oh, can we have a wheelchair that can go on gravels? Can we have chair that you can rent out to people that have big tires that can go on dirt and gravels and
yeah.
mud? How can we have this available for people who need them,
Right.
instead of making it so big that people don't want to change? Um, that's the thing with public land, right? I don't want to change public land because I want nature to be nature,
Right.
right? I don't want us to come in and start changing the mountain and the rivers and the lake. I want to find a way for me to be in that space. Like I want my public official to give me the tours that I need to be there. Um,
Yeah.
so no, I don't think so. I don't think I've seen a lot of advocacy for nature. Um, for a representation of people like me in nature. But I do know that we love to be in nature. Right? We love to travel. We love to explore. Something that I'm noticing more is that it's easier for me to find an accessible campground.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if I go on national park mostly, like public um, uh, owned campgrounds, public lands on parks, I can search for things that are accessible. Um, Privately, it's harder, right? Like if you want to go somewhere off the beaten path, it's a little more challenge. Which I have done before. I was road tripping down from Portland, and then I just pulled into this campground randomly because I was like, I'm tired. I need to like camp for the night. I'm not driving anymore. And uh, luckily for me, I could pull into this campground. I just found on Google Maps. It was a brand new campground. It right away right in front is like, oh, a welcome LGBTQ friendly. Like even though I'm just an ally, I felt like I was in my safe space because once you welcome a community, you welcome all community.
Right.
And I come in there, and the owner was there, and he was so willing to help out. Like he put me into a spot with a power outlet, and he set me up in this space, and that I felt comfortable with putting my tent on and everything, and give me his phone number. Luckily, because like that night, my chair did actually get stuck. like as I was building the fire, and then my chair just got caught into this pit, and the wheel couldn't get out. So luckily, I had his phone number, and I'm like, "Hey, sorry, I'm in this kind of, I came in earlier, and so this is like at 11 p.m. So I called this the owner of the campground, and he was so sweet. He came out and pulled me out of the ditch, basically. So yeah, I can definitely find more inclusive spaces now, I think, compared to before. Also have to do with experience, I have experience with the thing. The more you do, the more you figure out, okay, even if this space is not listed as accessible, I can manage. There's a certain limitation that I can still overcome. Um, so I think for us, I think most there just need to be more representation. I
Mm,
think there just need to be more of us. More of us need to realize that this space is also for us. Like
mhm.
we can be here too. Like, we should not let people who's gatekeep that's from being here and enjoying the same space as everybody else. And once there are more demand, and we'll have more accessibility and more inclusion.
Yeah.
Since if there's not enough of us, then we don't realize that this is also a space for us that need to be that some one of us had to adapt, right? Like so, like something need to be done so that we can all enjoy it. We can all experience it.
Mm. Yes. Yes. Representation matters.
Yeah,
Ah,
this
yes.
podcast, this is everything.
Well, and that was why I really wanted to have the discussion with you because I wanted it to be someone I actually know. But like I said, I've been so inspired by you and, the way that you advocate for causes that are important to you. But, you're not shy. You're not shy about speaking up when you feel like it is important, but you're also not shy to take risks and to travel, and it's just been really amazing to know you and to now also call you my friend. But yeah, I can't even think you wrapped it up so well. I thought, I don't even know where we continue from there because you hit the nail right on the head. Is once that demand is there, people have no choice but to pay attention. And I'll have to send you this documentary Joe and I watched, and it was on a someone who actually was handicapped from the waist down, and he's paralyzed because of an accident. But he used to ski and snowboard before, and I thought that he lost that. But it was really neat to see the community show up for him in that space. And we've talked to you about disabled sports here in Mammoth, about making these spaces more accessible and so these their groups are starting, and awareness is being brought to the attention of more folks of how we can make sure that we are involving everybody, and not just stopping ourselves at what we think is the limitation. So I appreciate you speaking on that. I actually have a friend who her husband also was born with not having any feelings in his legs. And so he's paralyzed from the waist down, but they go on bike rides all the time. Literally, they go on road trips, they do it all. They actually went to Grand Teton National Park again. And It was amazing because there's a group there who is focused on accessibility, and they actually had this adaptive bike for him to be able to go on trails that were otherwise would have been inaccessible for the mechanisms that he usually would use to travel on. And it was really neat to be able to see him go on this terrain that was very uneven. The trail was pretty narrow. I mean, it was just like the coolest thing. And he was able to summit a peak. And I thought, how cool. Uh, and I remember my friend, she shared it on social media, and this was this summer. It was like a whole group of folks using these bikes. But she literally got emotional because as much as her and her husband do travel and they do experience quite a bit outside, they had never been able to summit a peak together. You know, they go on biking trails, but it's usually trails that are wider. And of course, they have to be very particular on where they're able to go and doing that research on areas that are actually accessible to him. But yeah, it was really neat to be able to hear her story and to be able to see her husband achieve something that otherwise would have been limited to him. And I want that for all of my friends. I want that for everybody, no matter what their backgrounds are. And that's why I started this channel, because I want to continue to highlight these stories and these voices that we're not hearing enough about, and not just talk about it as a one off conversation. But I hope that this is the first of many. And I also hope that someone hears your story and feels inspired to also take chances and to try, because you deserve to have these experiences. I want to share them with you. And I can't believe we haven't been camping together yet, but we need to do that. Probably because we live too far, but we need to plan a camping trip already and try to go on some hikes together, because I enjoy your company, and I also want you to be able to have more of those experiences that bring you peace, because we all deserve to experience these spaces that are unchanged in nature and its natural beauty. It's so special, and we're losing that more and more. But yeah, you have,
I just want to point out that the joy in your face, the joy that you have when you are telling the story about your friend.
yeah,
And I think, and it's not just for people with disabilities, for people with any ability to be able to recognize each other. That's, oh man, we can all do this. We can all be here for each other. These are the things we can all do. I
exactly.
mean, that's when it brings joy. I think, this weekend on the beach, it was like I said, I'm not a beach person, but just being there and seeing everybody else being able to
Yeah,
experience that, like that, I didn't need to do much. I just needed to be there,
yeah,
right? To see that,
yeah,
to witness that, and like I see your joy because you're the kind of person that wants to be want to see people successful and like be succeed and see them happy, see them be able to do what you do. Like you find joy in creating joy for others, and I appreciate you for that. That's incredible. Like I just love watching you telling that story.
oh,
That's
thank you. And thank you for seeing me. You know, that is, it's so true. As much as I enjoy having experiences that bring me joy, it's not so fun if I can't share it with my friends and other people. And I think that's why I enjoy teaching in outdoor education, and especially introducing, kids who come from marginalized backgrounds who otherwise wouldn't be exposed to outdoor opportunities, taking them to these spaces and just seeing their faces light up, and seeing that peace that washes over them. Children are just, because they you see their emotions all over them. It's just written on their faces, and they're not shy, and they're going to tell you what they're thinking and how they're feeling. But that brings me the most joy is whenever I see those moments in other people, whether that's children or anyone from any age or background. It's We all deserve to have that, and I know it's brought me so much peace and fulfillment, and I want that for everyone. But thank you for saying that. Well, there's so much that I want to continue to talk to you about, but I also want to be respectful of your time. And I feel like we touched on a lot. I wanted to check in with you to see, is there anything else that comes to mind that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
I think I just want to encourage everybody to get out, not just people with disability, but any ability, any shape, size, form. Like, don't be say older people, young people. Everybody should just explore the outdoor. I think that's when you, like me, that's when you learn your limit. That's where you learn what peace feels like. You
Yeah,
need so go explore, go out into the world,
get outside. Yes.
go
Yeah.
out outside.
No, that's so true. And I also appreciate, you sharing your experiences. As much as there are moments we need to adapt, There's also it's okay too to accept that you don't need to get outside and recreate and whatever everyone in the ways that everyone else is doing it, right? So however you can get outside and have those experiences, that's what matters. Whether
Yeah, what
that's
do you say? Everybody hike their own hike?
hike your own hike, yeah.
Yeah, hike their own hike. Yeah, exactly. Go hike your own hike.
Whatever that looks like, right? If you need to walk slower or maybe you need to do something flat, whatever that is,
Mm.
I've been trying to encourage my friends and family to do the same. Like, it's okay. I think they see what Joe and I do sometimes and are a little intimidated. But I have to remind them that's not all that we do either. We can also easily just go hang out by a lake and we don't have to, do anything to the extreme. So that's okay too. But yeah, thank you so much. There's so much that you share that just further gave me more inspiration and just appreciating the opportunities that I have had as well. I'm so thankful to call you a friend, and I'm so thankful that you've had these experiences. And I hope that we can share some more together outside because, yeah, we haven't done enough together. So I can't wait for you to come and visit, and hopefully we can do something that weekend when you come for the wedding.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to like take a few extra day off to spend some time with you guys.
Yeah, yeah, either come a little earlier or stay a little later so we can go and do some stuff together. Because that would be really cool.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
Appreciate you, and thank you so much for your humbleness and your transparency and being willing to share your story. As you mentioned, I think before we started recording, is that it's there's something so powerful when people share their own stories, and personal testimony to me is something that I appreciate. I think that's why I enjoy documentaries or biopics, is because I love hearing someone's
Mhm.
we all have our own unique perspectives, but yet there's always those common threads that connect all of us as human beings. And there's so much part of your story that I connected to, even though I think physically on the outside we might seem like we come from completely different backgrounds and worlds. But yet there was a lot that I saw myself in you as you were describing what you've experienced and what your world has been like. So thank you so much again for your time and for joining me. And yeah, hopefully, this was the first of many more discussions because I'd love to chat on this topic a lot more. Of
Yeah, this was so cool. Thank you for getting me to open up and share.
course. Hopefully, it wasn't too bad for you. Good. Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Black and Wild, the podcast. I just want to say thank you again to my guest, Khang. I appreciate you coming in and sharing your story and shedding some light on, what it is like to be someone who lives with a disability. And also just, how you've been able to overcome limitations that others may have placed on you and despite that, being able to experience the world in ways that I think others maybe don't, because they let themselves be held back for whatever reasons. And some takeaways that I have from our conversation is that one, community played a really big role and continues to play a role in the experiences that King has in the world and just what he's able to do. But his community has also helped inspire him and encourage him to have that confidence to take those chances and to try new things. And we could all use a little bit more of that. We really are influenced by people that we spend the most time with. And another point that stood out to me from that conversation is that it really makes a difference for anyone if you are able to be introduced to people who are unafraid and willing to push limits to ask those questions on how they can help because that can really make a difference. It sounds like it has for King. That weekend that he described the weekend prior to our discussion, which was a day on the beach. Um, that's just so amazing that there are people out there that they don't have to go out of their way to open up these opportunities for others, but yet they are doing that. And it inspired me to think, how can I use my accessibility and privilege to be able to provide these opportunities for other people who may not have those otherwise? So give people a chance to learn and open up doors for other people. I love what he said too, that we can't open this the doors of this world by ourselves. It really takes, a group effort to be able to do that and to be exposed to new experiences. Because all too often, as Khang mentioned, people with disabilities are turned away and are looked at, especially in outdoor spaces, like they shouldn't be here or they don't deserve to be here. And again, it's called public lands because we all deserve to experience these places. Well, I will let you go on that note. I hope you have been just as inspired as I have from this conversation. And stay tuned for another episode that comes out every month around the middle of the month. And I'll see you next time. Until then, take care.